Anyway, let's dive in. Just do the exercises. Just do
la 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 la.
I am not a wizard. 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 That'll do. Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards, you lucky people. My name is Richard.
And I'm Steven Tudor.
And Steven Tudor's from Polyhedron Collider. And
I am
yes,
indeed.
You are indeed. So good evening, Mr.
Good
Steven
evening.
Tudor. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me on.
Well, I had to.
Well, yeah, you had to really. You was congratulatingly obliged after bringing those other two on first, didn't you?
It was kind of getting awkward in the corridor when we passed each other at work. Do you know what I mean? I started having to hide my face and kind of whistle as I went past. Oh, there's Steve. Hi, when can I come on? Whoa, sorry. No, I've got a lunch. Sorry, Steve, got a lunch.
Well, it's usually just, oh no, I've got Jamie Stegmaier on, or I've got such and such person on, you know.
I am turning into the Molly Sugden's bridesmaid character off of Little Britain. Do you know what I mean? Just a chat, just a chat. Do you know what I mean? And so I was just playing. I was playing some Wasteland Express delivery service the other day, and I had John Gilmore on the live chat, and I was just asking him about some key mechanics, and then lo and behold, who turns up but Christopher Bedell from Greater Than Games, and we had a chingwag as well. But then James Hudson had to get on the live cam. It's just. But anyway, it's good to have you on.
Yeah, good to be on.
So I suppose we better do the admin stuff. For people who aren't aware, the reason first of all that we have Steve Tudor from Polyhedron Collider on is because they have been referred to as the Top Gear of board games, as in the Top Gear of board gaming podcasts and general media. Now I will leave you to decide, because we've had everybody on now, and I'll leave you to decide until the end of the episode which character is which. We do believe potentially that Andy Lewis does say that he thinks that Steve is very much like Jeremy Clarkson, but we shall arrange for them to wrestle that out in some kind of mud-covered pit.
If I was just to say cock, I think that puts it into context.
And that'll be the explicit rating on the podcast.
Well, I was talking about a male chicken, of course.
I was trying to think of a cool analogy, but the only thing I could come up with was I'd like to think that I am the Matt LeBlanc to your original Top Gear, but then I've obviously actually just Chris Evans. Let's kind of be honest.
Is that Colin? Because Colin would have been Chris Evans, and now he's not on as much.
He was always on as much. It's just that I happen to keep asking people if you'd like to be on the podcast, and then the next thing that happens is they come on the podcast, and then me and Colin don't get a chance to play stuff, and then Colin is coming back on. But however, that is all going to be rectified in the next couple of weeks, because Colin's going to become a regular feature on the show. That's an exclusive, I'm just going to say.
You heard it here first, folks.
There you go, it's an exclusive. Colin is coming back every single month, guaranteed, at least a show. We're going to ditch the existing format, not because it doesn't work, but just because it means we don't get enough time to chat. And it means that he will be coming back on a regular basis. So there you go. You've heard it here first, on our live, on our... This could be our 100th show, it's not. We're getting dreadfully close, it's terrible. The reason that we do this, and people are just going to go, I've no idea why I'm even tuning into this, because this is just a ramshackled ramshackled attempt at a podcast this evening. But the reason that we do this is we wholeheartedly believe that apart from a couple of other podcasts out there that shall remain nameless, I've heard there's something called Gaming Rules that exists quite recently, which I need to check out. I've heard. I don't know if that's good or not.
I don't know. Not listened to that. No idea who that is at all.
No, and apart from that and Polyhedron Collider, there are quite simply not enough podcasts out there about board games.
No, definitely not. Needs to be more. Needs to be a lot more.
There needs to be at least
Actually,
enough.
no. I don't want any more. I don't want the competition. It's hard enough as it is.
And the other reason that we do this is because it's been a while since you had two old white guys, giving their opinion about cardboard. I mean, I can't think of
it's
any
a niche.
place.
It's a very narrow and deep niche that we fill here.
It's like a Fantasy Flight trench.
What?
When you try
cardboard and mostly useless.
When you try to stick Descent back in the box and you're like, I meant to fit 3 of these in here? It's not going to happen. This is just, it's just gone all over the place. We potentially have questions.
Ooh.
Which we're going to kind of scattergun through the show.
Okay.
Normally we do follow a certain format, but since this is the third time we've had somebody on from Polyhedron Collider, I thought the best thing to do would be just to mix it up just a little bit.
Oh, keep me on my toes.
And put Steve on his toes a little bit. So we do have some questions, but that means that I have to scroll to the right bit in Twitter to find them. So we're not going to do that. As we do on the show all the time, we like to do a bit of history lesson. So this is kind of like, how many episodes are you in on the show? Is it 35, 36?
It's about that, yeah.
Yeah, because I was listening to the most recent one. I do listen, you see. I do listen because I don't like the way you talk to John about Talisman, which is why we brought him. Just why we brought him on to do his entire episode.
Well, that's it. You get it out of his system. So he doesn't need to talk about Talisman on our show for at least another 3 episodes. I think he lasted half an episode, though. I think he actually did bring it up.
He did, but that was only because he was talking about Labyrinth, the board game.
Which I was quite surprised how similar it was to Talisman. He always says, like, it's a bit like Talisman, this game. And you're kind of going, oh, God, this is going to be the most tenuous link ever. And then he starts describing Labyrinth. It's like, no, this is exactly the same bloody game as Talisman. So I was really quite shocked at that.
It sounded like it was a little bit better than Talisman. That's not true. That's not true. That's not fair on John.
No. We take the mick out of John enough on our own podcast. I should probably leave him alone on this one, shouldn't I?
You probably... Well, it doesn't matter. You can say what you want, because then I might have to edit. But I heard Andy saying it doesn't matter because I don't edit anything anyway. That's not true. There's a lot of work that goes into making this show, Mr. Lewis, I'd like to point out. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, I mean, he just rocks up to record and he's half cut in his smoking jacket, talks bollocks for an hour and a half, and then I've got to somehow rescue a programme from the ashes of that mess he's left behind.
Which is amazing, because usually you can get a good half hour out of this stuff. Polyhedron Collider has been... It's kind of been the silent little engine that could. It's a delightful kind of mixture of your review side of things of the site. You've got your podcast, which you put out there, and you have kind of cut your little niche, and we do joke about it, but it's a genuinely entertaining piece of entertainment that you guys have managed to kind of fall into.
Well, thank you very much.
But that's the present.
Yeah.
Staring back, and this is when we needed the webcam, because you can actually see me pointing, because I actually do point to remind myself, as I've said. Staring back at the past, Mr. T.
Mm-hmm.
When do you reckon that you first enjoyed the company of pressed and printed trees?
Oh, I think the catalyst moment will be one that I think many listeners of this podcast will be aware of, because I've noticed that in a few of your guests. It will be way back around about 1989 with the release of One Hero Quest. So I was about 10 years old, and I had this for a Christmas present.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to admit, I don't think it's quite the first thing that got me into it, because I'm struggling to remember what happened when. Because I remember I got Hero Quest, and I remember stumbling into Fighting Fantasy books via Grail Quest books, which I don't think they've survived really.
They were, in fairness, Grail Quest were written infinitely better and had a vast amount of humour in them.
Yes, I do remember them being quite funny, but it was donkeys years ago since I last read a Grail Quest book. But I remember getting Hero Quest, and I remember getting drawn in by that advert. Yeah, the one that's now classic on YouTube, the old Bloodthode. Bloodthode. I distinctly remember that advert, because you don't get board games these days having adverts that
you don't
plush.
No.
I mean, how much money went into that? They had sets, they had costumes, they even got a dwarf and dressed him up as a goblin at some point in it. I mean, just that mask alone must have cost them quite a bit of money.
Did they have Wolf from Gladiator in it? Because I thought every single kind of muscle man that went about was always a wolf from Gladiator.
I don't know. I can't remember that. Maybe it was.
Maybe it was. I remember. Do you know? Just as a quick backpedal, I remember the Space Crusade advert, and they actually dressed the guys up to look like proper Space Marines. And I remember looking at that. I
don't remember that one. I'm going to have to look that up on YouTube as soon as we finish this, because I haven't seen that.
You have to look at... Oh, do you know what they could do? You could look it up right now, and we could do like a reaction. Because they do reaction things on YouTube, do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And here's Kilo Dave. Kilo Dave's about to open up a packet of crisps. Oh, they're new crisps. He's never tried pickled onion before. Let's see what happens when he eats pickled onion. That kind of nonsense. But we will leave it. We'll save it for later on. But, yeah, Hero Quest. So I was around about the same time, yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but on the back of that little instruction manual was a little thing that showed you all the miniatures painted, by professional painters.
Yes.
And this little thing, like, if you'd like to know more information about painting, please send a stamped addressed envelope to this address. And I did that and got the Citadel Miniatures Painting Guide.
Oh my goodness.
Which had all these other miniatures in. There was more wizards, there was aliens, there was these blokes with guns in armour. It's like, what the hell is all this? And I can't remember what order other things happened, but I remember getting Space Crusade, I remember getting this painting guide, the Space Crusade painting guide, a couple of issues of White Dwarf, because they had Hero Quest and Space Crusade issues.
Yeah, they did.
Which are the only two I've actually kept of all my White Dwarf magazines. I've binned a lot of them about 5 years ago, but I've kept those two ones. And from there it just led on. It just that introduced me to Games Workshop. And
were you a Warhammer boy then?
I was a Space Marine boy.
Oh.
So most people call it Epic.
Yeah.
But I remember the iteration that came out about 91, 92 was called Space Marine, and that was the first game we got into, me and my friends, and that was the one we played the most. I remember everyone else getting Warhammer Fantasy, but I never really got into that because I couldn't afford an army.
So how many characters did you have then?
I can't remember what we had now. I know I had an Elder army for Space Marine, and I can't remember what we could manage to plug together. But I remember we'd play a little bit fast and loose with the rules sometimes. So
yeah,
like my friend bought Titan Legions a little bit later, and so we mixed and matched the kind of Imperial and Elder stuff to fight against the Orcs and that kind of thing. And what we used to use, because we didn't have a gaming table, my mate had Battle Masters, if you remember that.
I have Battle Masters.
You still have Battle Masters?
I've got it upstairs.
we played that quite a lot, and then we realised that if we put a couple of books onto the Battle Masters mat, you could make 3D hills. And then plonk the epic Space Marine buildings on as well, and all of a sudden you've got this 3D terrain. It's fantastic.
So you were about 20 years earlier than what they do in Kickstarter nowadays, which is print and make your own scenery.
Yeah, basically. We were just bodging it together with whatever we could find.
Young Mr. Tudor was already in there. You could do one of those copyright claims that they seem to do, these bogus companies that kind of turn up and start saying, you know what I mean? You're using the breathe-in mechanic on your lungs. We've got a patent on that, so we're suing everybody. That kind of nonsense. So you moved on. Did you do what most people do, which is you reached a point in your life where you had the trouser legs of time?
Yeah.
And you could either go down the left trouser leg and take yourself up with your miniatures and your plastic and keep on playing, or you could go down the right trouser leg and follow other interests, which kind of drifted you away from the kind of the plastic and cardboard world.
No, it was more just circumstance really that led me down the right trouser leg. Because the other game that kind of I got roughly at the same time, and this was just randomly out of the K's catalogue, I remember seeing it, was the old I got Dungeons and Dragons the year after I got HeroQuest.
We need to explain the K's catalogue.
We probably do. There's probably people too young,
There's probably people who don't remember,
or Americans who won't know this thing is.
Yeah. When you were younger, you used to get like a book full of stuff. This was like before they had the internet, and what they used to do is they used to put the internet in a book, and they used to put lots of pictures in it. They even had pictures for shoes, and they also had the ladies section. The ladies section, which sometimes you'd look at.
I think many a young boy became a man based on that K's catalogue.
But then they had prices, and then what you would do is that you'd bug your mum and you'd say, "Mum, I want this, please. I want Space Crusade," because I got Space Crusade either from the Littlewoods catalogue or the K's catalogue. I can't remember. And it'd be a picture, and it'd have the price next to it, and then it would say it can be yours for, and it was only $24.99, which I remember was really expensive at the time. Or you can pay like £1.22 over 177 weeks or something like that.
That was it. Interest rate of like 300% or something like that.
Ridiculous like that. But you had the K's catalogue, and that was your entire world. And what you would do is, when you was sitting there waiting for Space Crusade to arrive, all you had was that one picture, because you couldn't go anywhere else and look at stuff. There wasn't any previews, there wasn't any reviews, there wasn't any videos. You just had the K's catalogue, and that was it. So it was the internet in a book.
Well, that's exactly what happened with Dungeons and Dragons, actually, because it was in this K's catalogue next to HeroQuest. So I assumed at the time it was a board game based on the old cartoon.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea this whole RPG thing existed. You know, the only reference to Dungeons and Dragons I'd ever seen was the old Dungeons and Dragons Ride cartoon. You know, Dungeon Master and Unicorn and all that.
Unicorn. Frank Welker did the voice, and you had Dungeon Master. Oh, this is oh my goodness, this is going to have to be a whole explanation. Kids, during the mid to late 80s, Dungeons and Dragons decided to take a more family-friendly theme in the format of a weekly serial cartoon, where a group of about 4 or 5 friends found themselves transported essentially into the Dungeons and Dragons world through the format of a Dungeons and Dragons roller coaster. You had different people taking on different roles. So you had a ranger, you had a knight, you had like an acrobat, you had a thief, and you had a wizard. And you had a little barbarian, Bobby the Barbarian. But on top of that, it was like Sheila, the acrobat. And yeah. And so they were going up, and the Dungeon Master kind of appeared. Dungeon Master who had ultimate power, but who was actually a bit of a bastard.
He was a bit, wasn't he?
Because him being the Dungeon Master, there was nothing wrong with him clicking his fingers and just sending them home. But he decided to put them through about 3 or 4 series of this. So it was a 1980s cartoon. Check it out on YouTube. It's very interesting, because it had Tiamat in it, didn't it?
It did have Tiamat in, yeah. I don't think that's probably aged very well either.
It's probably not, but it was
I think it was Hanna-Barbera as well, so they were renowned for making really cheap cartoons, weren't they?
It's as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're not stopping the podcast, but what we're doing is we're gonna have a. Was it they would have that? Dun 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 dun. You can sing the tune after I find this.
Giving everyone a chance to go look at the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon and the Space Crusade advert.
Yeah, you could do things at the same time, and then when you come back after these choice messages, and then we could cut to like pretending we were doing a Space Crusade. Yeah, there you go. Because it had a ranger, it had Bobby the Barbarian, it had the wizard, it had Sheila, and then Eric was the knight, and then it had somebody else, I can't remember, but they were like brother and sister, and you always thought that the ranger and the thief girl were going to get it on, but it didn't happen because it was a kid show.
Yeah. I don't think they ever got home either, did they?
I think...
Didn't they read something? They never actually finished making it. There was supposed to be another series and it got cancelled, so they never actually got home.
Yeah, I think they kind of got to almost the end, and I think they kind of got to. Oh my goodness, yeah, season 3, episode 6. I can't remember if this is how we go. The Cave of the Fairy Dragons. This is amazing. Everybody's like sitting there going, "Yeah, I could have gone and watched this on YouTube. Thanks, guys." No, it doesn't matter. We can always come back to it. Other good 80s cartoons. Do you remember Mask, Steve?
I do remember Mask. I used to love Mask.
Mask, do you remember Centurions?
Power Extreme!
Yes!
Yes!
Yeah,
oh,
do you remember
the
toys?
Them.
The toys used to be huge. The toys used to be about 8 or 9 inches high, and you used to be able to attach all the stuff, but they only ever seemed to sell in the UK was the really, really just the basic stuff.
Yeah, I had the blue guy who was the air expert, so he turned into a jet.
Was he not called Max?
Oh, it was certainly the 80s like that, yeah.
It was something that was obvious. It was like my name basically told you what I did, kind of thing. Yeah, Mask was good. I like Mask, but they turned Mask into kind of like a racing series kind of halfway through, I remember, because people complained that there was too much violence in it, so they ruined it. You know, but that's it. Now, me and Steve are on our little nostalgia bubble. You could just all leave us alone. But Tiamat,
yes.
in Dungeons and Dragons, and then you disappeared down the right-hand trouser leg. I'm guessing following other trouser things.
Well, what happened was I remember playing. So I was, into me miniatures games, into whatever little board games you had, which was mainly just Games Workshop games. So you're looking at Space Hulk, Blood Bowl, that kind of thing. And then during this time, I'm also playing Dungeons and Dragons loads. I go to uni and I join up a role-playing club in uni. So I'm playing like Vampire and other really weird indie RPGs I've never seen before or since. And I also remember we played RPGs with my housemates, because most of my housemates were into this kind of thing as well. So we played a bit of Necromunda, a bit of Magic, a bit of D&D then. And I just remember leaving uni, moving house to go get a job, and it just dying. It just ended at that point.
I remember there being a time that apart from maybe the selected places like Forbidden Planet and things like that at that time, there wasn't really even kind of like comic book shops or
no, you never really saw anything, did you?
No, and of course you didn't have the internet, and the K's catalogue sadly had kind of left us by that time.
In that wilderness period, wasn't it? Before the end of K's is gone, internet hasn't picked up. No. And I actually weirdly remember somebody talking about Warhammer 40,000 once. And they started talking about it with him, and I got my interest piqued up, and I think, oh, hang on, am I going to find someone who's going to play 40k with me again so I can get back into all this? And it ended the entire conversation with, oh yeah, I used to play that stuff, but I've grown up now. And I just remember like my heart dropping at that point. It's like, all right, okay, that's it. As you said, I'm fully down the right trouser leg now. I'm heading towards the socks.
It's like airplane, and that's when I end up getting my drinking problem. Just throw a glass of juice in your face, and away you kind of go. But then the only thing that seemed to be kicking about was Games Workshop. So at the time,
Yeah.
Games Workshop was no wonder it dominated, because it really was the only place you could get kind of anything. And even then, White Dwarf itself just had adverts to buy kind of more
Games Workshop, wasn't it?
It was only if, and I remember this, it was only if there was adverts sometimes in, I think, the Games Workshop magazine, potentially for other places that sold the miniatures. And sometimes they would send you out a catalogue with the other stuff that you could get. Yeah,
and they were licensed miniatures at one point, were they? You could buy other people's miniatures to play in Games Workshop games. But I also remember, I distinctly remember the point in which White Dwarf stopped doing external adverts, and that was only like 3 or 4 issues into me starting getting it. So we're about like 92, 93. They stopped advertising. I remember seeing adverts for video games in there, and these weird premium rate RPGs where you phoned up a premium rate telephone number to play an RPG.
Oh my goodness, we were talking about this like the other day. Have you ever seen the comedy sketch? Was it Flankenhoof?
Oh no, I don't have seen that.
Oh my goodness, you have to watch. This is another. I'm going to send you an entire, and everybody that's listening out there, it's called. It's by Limmy. And I think it's at Flankenhoof. And it is based around one of these premium rate numbers. And it's just absolutely hilarious, because the guy... is it Flankenhoof? Come on. It's something anyway. People are going to be screaming at me. This is back to like bloody hackers again and that. So what's that thing again called?
What's that film where Angelina Jolie plays a hacker?
I'm glad we could kind of bring that up.
Yeah.
Because we would just like to make you aware that we were playing you all the way along, and that we're glad that you picked up, because we were just checking, because we like how to.
I could believe you were playing me. I know John wouldn't be. John has no concept of pop culture at all.
Falkenhoof. The thing is called Falkenhoof, and it's just basically, it's like you can imagine it's like a Scottish guy going, and you're going west into the pit of Achramati. What do you do? And then this guy kind of does something, and there's a big argument, and it's just a Glaswegian guy just getting really angry at the end, in the best kind of Glaswegian way around. When did you go back into cardboard then? What kind of then got you switched round, did your 180 and got you back up the trouser leg again? What a stupid analogy.
Heading back towards the crotch.
Yes, back to the bumhole of cardboard.
Yeah, this analogy's fallen down, isn't it?
It's just completely...
Weirdly, it was the Xbox.
Oh, okay.
This is a really weird way in which it happened, but the Xbox went down the year that Modern Warfare came out. Xbox Live went down. So Call of Duty, was it Call of Duty 4? Modern Warfare, if you can remember back that far. It was so popular, and everyone got it on Christmas Day, that Xbox Live went down for like 48 hours. And as a way of compensation, they gave everyone 2 free games for Xbox Live.
Yeah.
This is like way in the early days of Xbox Live, when all the games were like 50 megabytes. So they were all quite kind of simple and indie. And one of them was Carcassonne.
Oh, yeah.
Digital version of Carcassonne. And I remember playing it quite a lot, actually, because back then as well, me and my friends used to do like Xbox LAN parties as well. So we'd all take our Xbox down to a friend's house and hook them up to TVs and play Halo all day. That seemed like it wasn't that long ago. When I think back, that's getting on for like 10, 15 years now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But one of my
like
friends,
when somebody says 2005 and you're like, 2 years ago. And
it's like,
not.
That's 12. Oh, bugger. So one of my friends there was really into Carcassonne. I used to play against him all the time and play it on live. And then my current wife, I say current wife like I've had several, but my wife, I've only had the one.
Do you want to start that sentence again? And we can, let me just, I'm going to click here so we can edit. Click. And then you can try. Okay, start again. My wife.
So my wife moves in with me,
Right.
my girlfriend at the time, and she starts playing. My wife loves video games. She's upstairs playing World of Warcraft at the moment. Actually,
All right. Okay.
so she starts playing some games on the Xbox, finds Carcassonne, and absolutely loves it. And I decide that since it is a board game, I'm going to go out and hunt down this game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just remember spending an afternoon in Worcester, just with a list of all these shops I'd found like online and Yellow Pages that might sell board games. And I was trying to access that part of my brain because I hadn't been to a board game shop since university, like 15 years previously or something daft like that. Trying to access
was this like fly fishing with J.R. Hartley?
Yeah, it was exactly like that. It's like I'm going to model shops.
We got to explain this. So,
We've
guys,
got to explain all our references.
Okay. Kids, during the late 80s, early 90s, there was an advert for the Yellow Pages. We have to explain the Yellow Pages as well.
We could be here all day.
Yellow Pages is like the address book of the internet in a big yellow book, because you couldn't find where things were unless you had a Yellow Pages. It had a list of all plumbers and stuff. You know, nowadays you just go, okay, Google, find me a plumber. Well, in that day you didn't. You had the Yellow Pages. And they used to do a series of kind of generally inventive
They used
adverts.
to do adverts for them, didn't they? Which was really weird because, I don't know, I lived in the arse end of nowhere. I lived up in North Wales. We only had the Yellow Pages. There was no competition. You know, it's not like as if I'm going to get that information from anywhere else.
I know.
And there's the adverts for it.
But anyway, there was a series of popular adverts regarding a gentleman who was looking for a book called Book About Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. And the premise of the art... Exactly. Do you have Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley? It is rather old. And he went round all these shops. And every time... And then there was obviously parts in the advert you had people... Obviously, this was one of their first acting.
Yeah.
It was a montage of rejection as this guy went from shop to shop. And you always remember there was the one guy in the bookshop who just, obviously he really grabbed onto the rope, and you could really see he was like just turning around and going, no! Shaking his head at the same time. Get out my shop, you git. And then obviously at the end, he phones up the Yellow Pages and he goes, oh, you do? Oh, you have? Yes. Oh, my name? Yes. It's J.R. Hartley. And that advert went on for years.
It was, wasn't it? It was on for donkey's years.
Did they not have a follow-up advert? And they had like his son finding the same book or some nonsense like that. Anyway,
it wasn't nowhere near as popular. Anyway, yes, it was just like that. It was just like that. Me going around shops in Worcester, me going, do you sell board games? And them going, no.
What?
What? Why would we sell board games?
You mischievous oink.
Yes. Have you tried Games Workshop? No, I'm not that bloody stupid. Come on. Games Workshop is not going to be stocking Carcassonne, is he?
How many times did you get told that? Oh yeah, we've got Carcassork. Isn't that Blood Bowl? It could be. So you finally tracked it down.
So I finally tracked it down, I found a toy shop in Worcester that sold board games, and it was like walking into Santa's grotto. It really was. It was just like, I found Carcassonne on the shelf, and then next to where it was, because all the boxes were kind of stacked side on, so you can see the name in the box. Except for one or two boxes were obviously like, okay, these are the items we really want to try and flog. And facing me was, its full glory, was Arkham Horror.
Oh, not Talisman then.
No, not Talisman. I should point out that John had already got Talisman at this point, and so was sowing the seeds. So he already had Talisman, he already had Robo Rally. So I think he'd already been sowing the seeds of getting these board games. But that was the kind of real light bulb moment, because I'd played loads of Call of Cthulhu RPG.
Yeah.
And I saw this because it was still advertised at that point as being a Call of Cthulhu board game, something which I noticed they've surreptitiously dropped from that range. And so it was like, oh my god, what is this? I need this in my life. And then that just basically, I then found Board Game Geek and some other websites, and basically that's it then. I'm now in crippling debt and have a room full of pressed pretty cardboard.
Do you still have that copy of Carcassonne?
I do indeed, yeah.
Do you ever kind of take it out on anniversaries and have a game? Reminisce?
No,
look after it? Or?
I'll look after it. I try and look after most of my games. In fact, Mr. Andrew Lewis of our podcast has destroyed more of my games than I have. So,
oh, okay.
Have you not heard this tale?
No, I think it's always good to share and get rid of your negative. Let's purge your negative emotions and breathe. Tell
Mr.
us.
Lewis has poured an entire pint of beer over my copy of Game of Thrones.
I can't even.
Well, to be fair, it was an accident. He was highly apologetic. It should also be pointed out this wasn't the first time a drink got poured on this copy of Game of Thrones, because my wife's stepsister also poured half a bottle of WKD over the same board.
Oh my goodness!
And this is where it gets really weird. It was one of the first issues of it's the second edition of Game of Thrones, but it was like the first print run, and they cut the boards wrong, so the board didn't sit flat. It kind of wanted to keep peeking up.
Yeah. And
so I'd actually sent off a replacement. So here's Andy getting really stressed because he thinks he's ruined my copy of Game of Thrones. It's like, I've got a backup at home, Andy.
How long did you string him along for? Are you still stringing him along?
Oh no, I'm a terrible liar. I'm a really, really bad liar. I cannot do it. So I can try to string him along, but I've got this smug grin on my face as I'm doing it. So it just didn't work. It's why I'm rubbish at bluffing games. I'm absolutely terrible at them. What's the one I can't stand because I'm so bad at it? Coup. Have you played Coup?
Yes.
I get ousted in Coup in seconds. You know, I'm going to use this ability to get 2 gold. You haven't got that card, Steve. Oh, shit.
Of course, in Scotland, a coup is something completely different. Have you played coup?
Okay,
what are you saying? Where did it come from? I'm not a proper fifer. Anyway. But you mentioned John. And you've mentioned Andy. So how long have you been hanging around with those two extremely talented and good-looking other members of the podcast?
Blimey, that's a good question because John has been friends with my wife since they were both 18 because they both did a year in industry together. Now this is the weird thing. Me, John, Andy, and my wife actually all worked for the same company at one point. That's how we all know each other. We're like a big group of friends all working for this massive Ministry of Defence research company.
Was it like some kind of 1980s kind of sitcom precursor to Friends? We'd all just turn up and smile at each other.
No, it wasn't like that. Nothing like that at all.
Industry.
No, the first time I properly met Andy Lewis, actually, I was in a pub with somebody else. Andy turns up, and everyone else I'm with just immediately starts taking the piss out of him. It's like, right, no. Okay, this is the guy we take the mick out of then, is it?
Oh, no, poor Andy.
He gives it as much as he takes it, it's fine.
Is that why he grew his beard?
It could be. Ironically, it's the evening when we started calling him Captain Haddock. Which he didn't have the Captain Haddock beard then, which doesn't really quite make sense. But
oh my goodness!
So I've probably known John about. I'm just trying to think now. I've probably known John about 15 years, and I've probably known Andy about 10 years.
That's a long time. You know, you could have been out for murder in life. I'm just saying. I'm not judging or anything like that. You know, I'm just informing, Your Honour, as it would be. So. Okay, so you're all hanging about and playing games, and we'll jump on to what you're playing in a minute. But where'd you get from hanging around and playing games to actually you? I take it was I take it Polyhedron Collider was your brainchild then. I take it it was you that kind of made the steps and went, actually.
Yeah, so I started it off as the blog, as the written website, and that really came about a bit weird actually because. At the time, I'd actually left the company I was working with these chaps, and I was getting really into board games. I was struggling to find stuff. Now, what I didn't realise is this is at the point when kind of the Dice Tower and all the video reviews was kind of picking up. But I used to look at stuff about board games during my lunch break, and my company blocked YouTube and all video websites. So I'm looking for all this stuff about board games. At the same time, I've always been big into video games as well.
Yeah.
So I was looking at video game stuff like Eurogamer and Rock Paper Shotgun, that kind of thing. And I was getting really frustrated there was nothing like this for board games. And just what I didn't realise is, because I couldn't see YouTube, is the entire industry had gone, well, written media is not the way to go, we need to go over to video.
Yeah.
And I said it to somebody that there doesn't seem to be this, any really good written review websites. There were a couple hanging around, but nothing really good.
Yeah, but I was hearing, as a quick aside, I was hearing a podcast today, Laps Gamer Radio, and they had a guest, John Denton, who used to write for video games. And he said there was a funny period where there was, all of a sudden, it kind of from nowhere, everybody that was print, a lot of these websites kind of appearing, like your Eurogamers and your IGNs and everything like that from nowhere. So maybe the guys at this... I thought about this as I was kind of on my way to work, and I thought, well, maybe the reason we didn't see as many written stuff was because there wasn't much point at the time, because traditionally you would have gone ahead and started like a tabletop gaming magazine, and there simply wasn't the readership for that. And at the same time, you got the start of the kind of the real start of the kind of the YouTube people kind of really starting to turn up. And then I guess board gaming wasn't... I couldn't have seen a board gaming website as being a big, huge thing.
No,
I wouldn't have thought.
No, I don't think it would have been successful, really. Onto this kind of scale that, IGNs and your Eurogamers and that kind of thing. And I never thought it would, to be fair. But somebody said to me something along the lines of, well, why don't you try doing it? And I went, don't be daft. Don't be daft. And then somebody else said, a completely other random conversation I was having, where somebody said, it was that whole thing about you never learn if you don't try.
Oh yeah.
So the wheels had started turning in my head about this like kind of written board game website, and somebody kept on saying, I think there was talking about the guy who wrote Dilbert. Is it Scott Adams?
I think so.
Yeah, he'd said something along these lines that he'd learnt more. He'd done something before Dilbert and had failed miserably, and he'd learnt more from the failure than from the success, kind of thing. So I thought, well, let's do it completely low risk. Let's just go get Blogger to host it, so it's free hosting. Let's, I'm not going to exactly pay someone to do all kind of WordPress themes or anything like that for me. So why don't I just go for it? And I think the thing was as well, I got so back into board games that I kind of felt like I was going to explode of all this kind of excitement. It was like being a little kid. And all the things I really enjoyed about board games and miniature games and RPGs and that when I was like a teenager was still bubbling in my head again. It was like, I need to release this somehow, so I think I'm going to start writing about it.
We're back to the trouser legs again.
So yeah, that's it. I just started the website.
But where'd the name come from, though?
Well, that was... I remember brainstorming, and I had a notepad, and there must have been about 30 names on that notepad. And it had things like... Most of them were puns, like of Dice and Men, or...
Dice to see you.
Yeah, or board... The board came up a few times as being bored, and I just kept thinking, you can't say, board of games or something like that, or... And there's a few of them I just thought was... And right in the middle of them was just Polyhedron Collider, and I don't know why. I don't know how I came up with it. I just brainstormed it out one day and then thought, that shone on the page. That was brilliant.
The thing is, the couple that you've mentioned, I'm pretty sure there's podcasts on iTunes.
I think every single one I wrote down now exists as a podcast or a blog somewhere.
It's like walking down Hairdresser Street. The kind of the board game names, kind of, you know what I mean? Cut above the rest, Scissors. If you're in Scotland, there'll be Scissors 2.
Well, you get it for chippies as well, don't you? Like Adam's Place and Cod's Kitchen.
And, as
the Codfather.
It's just I was looking at, it's all it's the weird ones, then you just get kind of like strange side ones, and then you go, oh, I know what you mean by that kind of thing. And then you just get ones called like, is there one that's just called the Board Game Podcast? They're probably, I don't know if there is. There probably is. It's probably one of the first ones that kind of disappeared into the ether.
It could be like one of the later ones that no one ever thought, hang on, why don't we just call it the Board Game Podcast? That's far too straightforward.
It's like, there's what's this Dave Turner show, the computer game show. And I was like, how the hell did he come up with, how the hell did he get that name? But it's probably because nobody else has actually called themselves the computer game show. So hats off to Dave Turner. He's a fan of the show. I'm sure he listens. I'm sure he doesn't listen at all. But so you're writing away.
Mm-hmm.
You're releasing all this pent up cardboard aggression.
Yeah, excitement. Let's call it excitement.
Cardboard pent up excitement. And you're making stuff. And then when did you kind of give John the nod, and when did you eventually give in to Andy keeping bugging you if you could get involved?
Well, I'd wanted to do a podcast for a long time, actually.
Yeah.
Because podcasts are still the main way I get most of my board game information.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work in a job where I used to do 3D CAD and mechanical engineering design. And so you spend a lot of time looking at things, and so having somebody talking at you really helps pass the time, because you're not writing anything, so you don't have this whole thing of someone talking to you while you're writing, and you just end up typing what you're hearing being spoken to you.
Yeah.
So I used to listen to a hell of a lot of podcasts, and I always kind of said I want to do this, but it was just me doing Polyhedron Collider at the time, and I didn't want to do a podcast of just me talking. I obviously didn't have the clever idea you did of invite other people on. That would have been far too obvious.
I don't know how that happened. As I say, it's like, we joke about kind of Colin is actually appearing the number of times Colin should appear. It's just that I happen to keep on sending emails to people, or people keep kind of emailing us and saying, "Oh, we'd like to come on," kind of thing. So that's how that happens. But it's a difficult thing to do. To get a podcast, and it's a difficult thing to do a podcast if you listen to too many other podcasts, I think. Yeah,
because it's tempting to copy everyone else. It's like it's the same problem with board game review videos. If you look at most board game reviews, they're a carbon copy of Tom Vassel's board game review style. Stand in front of a bunch of board games, give an intro, give a description of how the game plays, stand back in front of your wall of board games and say if you liked it or not. It's quite terrifying how many different review channels are just basically exactly the same thing. So
you can imagine me doing that, because I should.
Oh, please do one.
I have to do that. I just like just one. I tell you what, I promise, right, I will do a review of a game, and I'll start it off by basically with my collection of board games behind me.
Is it on some rickety shelf, or just stacked in any way they can, so at any moment they're all going to fall on top of you?
No, they're all under the bed, so people...
Oh, please do it lying down.
Lying on the floor, going, "Hey guys... Today we're going to review Cry Havoc," and it's just me getting neck strain and falling over and try holding the instruction booklet up the wrong way and just generally making an absolute bum of it. So expect that in the next couple of weeks, just for a laugh, nothing too serious. But then, I mean, you get there are review guys. It's really weird, because while they follow the same format, there's some like review guys that I like them doing it.
Yeah.
I've kind of Michael May stuff on Two Can Play That Game. I'd have Mike round for a cup of coffee. He's a really, really lovely guy, and it's very kind of, it's gentle and it's friendly, and explains the game, and he gives his opinion over. But you could say, well, I don't really like it, but he never gives it. It's like never an offensive kind of in your face kind of thing. Obviously, Rado. I liked Rado's style. I like Rado's kind of. He's a bit thrown together. He's a bit kind of doing this. He's a bit kind of doing that. Kind of all the thing. Podcasts are different. Yeah, as I say, if podcasts are different. If you listen to, you could probably find our style in a couple other podcasts, and it might kind of like put you off from starting. But did you approach John and Andy and say how did that kind of come together?
So, John has already been into games for quite some time, and Andy. I knew Andy had previously been into games because I knew he previously liked his old Games Workshop stuff and Warhammer and that. And I kept trying to get into Andy into board games, kept trying to introduce him to him, and he was resisting for some reason. Until he got himself a girlfriend who introduced him to board games, and all of a sudden he had the same moment I did, that and he has now spent all of his salary on Kickstarter. So he was just getting back into this, and we started playing some games with him, and I said I'd really love to, because they both knew I was doing Polyhedron Collider, the website.
Yeah. And
so I said to him, I really want to do a podcast. I think what we could do it slightly different. It could be quite interesting. And I don't think Andy mentioned it when he came on, but Andy used to do video game reviews.
No, I don't think he did, Remit.
No, he didn't. No. He was quite shy about that. There's if you look for Sonic H Reviews, which is his Twitter handle as well, on YouTube, he's done a whole load of video game reviews.
Has he now?
In his very unique style.
What's he going? This is crap.
No, he's more eloquent than that, but he's not afraid to call out something for being crap. And so I said, well, since Andy's already had a bit of experience in that, I've got the kind of knowledge of doing this. I think I've been doing the website for about 4 years by that point. I said, why don't we give it a go and see what happens? So that's what we did. We grabbed Andy's microphone that he'd been using for recording the YouTube stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We actually played a game of Pandemic Legacy, I think. Oh my god, we did. And we still haven't finished that bloody thing. So it's the first game of Pandemic Legacy I think we played together. We had a few beers each because I think we were a bit nervous, so we had a few beers to begin with. Stuck this microphone in the middle of the table, and that's where ramshackle comes from, because the first thing I say is the setup's a bit ramshackle.
Right.
And that's where it kind of stuck then, this hashtag ramshackle.
Oh my goodness. Let's just see. I've actually found his YouTube channel. And it's looking amazing.
He hasn't done one for a long time.
He hasn't done one for a long, long time.
So the games are quite old, but a lot of them are worth a watch.
I will have to. We'll put the link into the kind of the show notes. Did you have a script? Did you have a style? How many times did you record before you released the first one? Or did you just throw it out there?
Do you know what? One of my favourite podcasts to listen to is The Secret Cabal. And they always say, the advice they said was, if you're going to do a gaming podcast, record 2 or 3 episodes before you record your first one. And we recorded one. I listened back to it and went, yeah, that'll do.
We did the same.
I was just like, I just thought, okay, the audio quality wasn't amazing.
No.
A little bit of editing was needed just to take off the rough edges. But I was always of a view of get something out there to begin with, and get it going. And okay, the amount of listens we've had on that first episode are nowhere near as what we're getting now. But it felt like we got the gist of it, and it was helped us find kind of where we sit anyway, what we want to do.
See, ours, we did the same. We just kind of like recorded it. Had no idea how Audacity worked. Had no idea how to normalise sound. Had no idea how to remove background noise. Had no idea how to use a microphone properly. So our first episode is absolute. It's content-wise, I'm quite proud of it.
Yeah.
But quality-wise, it's absolutely abysmal that I've gone back and tried to fix it on several occasions, but can't fix it. So that's the kind of thing. So we just.
There's a thing about audio. I find the more you tinker with it, the worse it gets. It really does. Because I used to do a lot of audio stuff on the computer about 10 years ago, which is where I've got the kind of knowledge for trying to make it sound better. And I say trying because the amount of times you do some tinkering, you go, "Oh, that sounds amazing," and then you just say, "Well, what did it sound like before I tinkered with it?" And you click on do a few times, just like an A/B thing. It's like, oh, it sounded a lot better before I started titting around with it, didn't it?
I know. The number of times I've kind of like, and let's just listen to that back. And no, I've definitely made it sound 100 million times kind of worse than what it was when it kind of started. Have you had audio disasters?
We've had a couple. We had one where I had only recently bought a new microphone, which is the one I'm still using now, and I had it on the wrong setting because it's a multiple selecting setting, so you can change the pattern, the reception pattern of the microphone.
Was it like a blue?
Yeah, it's
Yeti or something.
It's the old blue Yeti, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had it on one directional rather than all the way round, and had it in the middle of the table, and I sounded fantastic on it. John sounded a little bit muffled,
yeah,
and Andy sounded like a robot under a pillow.
Which is the best way for Mr. Lewis, if you ask me.
And then the other one was we can take the piss out of Mr. Lewis here. We got 3/4 of the way, I think, through. No, it wasn't even 3/4 of the way through. I think we'd actually finished recording, and we get to that point where we all wrap it up, say, right, okay, we have a bit of a wind down chat. We stop recording, we start saving the file and getting ready to put it onto Dropbox, and Andy just goes, "Shit, what? I didn't press record."
Oh dear. Oh, Lewis.
I can't do your bollocks right now, Andy.
Exactly. Are you kidding me? Or we just got to go and record an entire thing? Did you not? Was that not something that subsequently came up in the episode afterwards?
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
which you just got a ribbing forever and a day because you must have just recorded the entire thing. I think that happened to me and Colin when we did the Catacombs episode, where I think we had not set the microphone. So we'd set it to record through the PC instead of setting it to record through the microphone, and what happened was that it just peaked all the way through, and we kind of recorded the episode and went, well, that was a pretty good one for like our 4th or 5th one. And then we started to play it back just to say, oh, the levels look really good and high. So we started playing it back, and it was just like all the way through. It was absolutely kind of horrific. But I mean, the
best of them. Well, I mean, even mentioned the Secret Cabal. Even they made an announcement 2 weeks ago. They completely lost an episode like the other week.
Yeah.
So they said they tried everything they could to retrieve this episode from their hard drive. It was just like, no, it's gone.
No.
So and their episodes are like 4 hours long. So
I lost some of the audio on my side from the episode we did with Henry from Grubbling Games. And I had to re-record me talking on some of it.
Yeah, I've done that one.
Where it's almost like you're kind of like, you're doing a dream and you've got an extreme sense of deja vu, and it's like I've got to listen to the bit before and the bit after, and then I've got to try and time me talking and laugh at the same times, and remember when I laughed and remember when I said something that I shouldn't have said, and then bring it back in again. It's an incredible amount of fun, especially if you've got between about 4 to 6 hours of free time and you don't have anything else planned that day. It's a fantastic way to waste some kind of time. But the podcast has gone from strength to strength, and you've found this lovely flow. Maybe take a step back. I mean, for people that haven't listened to the show, and you're daft if you haven't, because it's better than this by a long shot. Just this episode. No, for people that haven't listened to Polyhedron Collider before, how would you describe it? I mean, you've mentioned words like ramshackled and stuff like that. But
I think actually one of my friends described it better. So this is a friend who doesn't play board games but listens to our podcast, and he said it's just like 3 blokes having a chat down the pub about board games. And I think he listened to he's been listening to day one. This friend who said this, and it was like episode 3 or 4. No, actually, it was after the second episode. He told us this, and I kind of went, "Yeah, that's what we want. Just a chat. I didn't want it to be too structured. I didn't want it to be like, here's the intro music for the review section, or here's our featured review of the week. I just wanted it to flow."
Yeah.
Like a conversation. It's with a little bit of structure in, so we'll talk about some odd, just a very vague bullet point outline we do. But I didn't want it to be forced. I think some other podcasts feel like because they've got to stick to the structure of what they do the same every week, that it can feel sometimes like it's a bit shoehorned in, and they've done a section just for the sake of doing a section.
We are blissfully free from those shackles of organisation. But you get, but you do like reviews as well. I mean...
Yeah, so what we decided to do was we'd pick, say, a game each, really. And it's one of the things that me and Andy have always said, we'll talk about a game we've written a review of as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually found it's better if I do the talk on the podcast before I write the review if I can.
Yeah.
Because there's something more honest about doing it and talking about it. When you write it, you can fall into this trap, and I will admit I'd fallen into it a bit before, where you're a bit too positive. You can feel as if you don't want to be offensive.
Yeah, no.
And it's quite easy to fall into, but when you're having a conversation, you wrote something down, you said, "Oh yeah, it's quite good." Well, quite good can be taken, "Oh, it's quite good." "Oh yeah, it's quite good." But when you're actually recording, your voice goes, "Yeah, it's quite good."
Yeah, it's the inflection, isn't it? Because the difference between the sarcasm and stuff like that. And I guess it's kind of strange because even though this podcast will exist in some way, shape or form once it's recorded and once it's out there, it might exist for a long, long time. People have a funny thing about, as you said, like viewing words kind of here and now. So they can read an entire review. And you're right, you don't want to... Do you know what it is? It's like somebody will pick up like a couple of points from a review and say, "Oh look, this guy, he thinks that Scythe is the worst game that's ever existed on the planet. Let's burn them," kind of thing. Whereas if you mention a podcast, you say, "Well, you know what? It was good, but I prefer Viticulture," kind of thing. Yeah. People will just say, "Well, that's kind of his kind of opinion." I think there's a lot more stuff invested in the kind of the written word, which is kind of like a bit strange. So you do, yeah, as you say, you were doing the reviews. Do you actually write? Do you almost transcribe your thoughts then from the podcast back to the website afterwards then? Is that how you kind of structure it sometimes?
No, it's just more just cementing my opinion, really. It's just, as I said, it's easier to vocalise what your feelings are on the podcast. So when you come down to writing it, you've made your decision a bit more because you've convinced, you convinced 2 other people what your opinion is of that game.
Yeah.
And Andy is quite good at, if there's even a hint of you didn't like it in your voice, Andy then comes down on you, "Well, you hated it."
Yes.
Yeah, you might be right, Andy. Yeah, I didn't like that, Whereas in the past, I would have been a bit too, it's all right if you like this kind of thing.
I think it's still the hobby's still finding its feet in an expression type of thing, and it's too easy to have a room full of 7s. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
It's too easy. Yeah, it's too easy to say I really, really like that, but I don't want to gush about it, so I'll give it an 8. Or I kind of not really fussed about that, but I don't want to really kind of jump all over its pretty face. And some people might like it because, as with board games, your mileage may vary. So I'm going to give it a 7, and that
It's quite interesting because compared to, say, video games, a video game can be intrinsically bad.
Yes.
The controls don't work, or it's buggy, or something like that. But you're right. There's things about board games where what I think is amazing, you might think is terrible. I posted a review up today of Mansions of Madness, and I loved Mansions of Madness. I highlighted some faults with it, but generally on the whole as a positive. And the first comment back was, "My opinion is completely opposite to yours. I think it's the worst game ever made."
Yeah, I posted up, and I've said this quite recently, I posted up a simple one-line comment on the board game Spotlight group, which was to say I thought that Terraforming Mars didn't live up to the hype.
I saw that, blimey. I thought you'd questioned people's ancestry by the way they replied to that.
I'm quite willing to enter into some kind of discussion about anybody and their opinions, but I'm going to defend the right for people to say that their opinions are their opinions. I believe that there's a formation of opinions that can be gained through experience. So if somebody says to me, Terraforming Mars looks crap, I'm not going to play it, then I'm going to say, well, that's a bit off, you should maybe experience it. Or if they say, well, I played Terraforming Mars for 5 minutes and I don't like it, okay, that's fair enough, maybe you should play it more. But it was interesting to see people telling me I was wrong.
Yes.
Which is always an interesting thing.
It was quite mirroring that exactly, actually. Andy posted a review of Betrayal at a House on the Hill.
Yes.
And because he's a brave man, is our lad Andy, he decided to post it on one of the, I think it was the board game group, which is like the biggest one, and the amount of replies that just quite simply said "you are wrong" or just "wrong," or a GIF that said that. No discussion. Well, I think you might be wrong. It was just quite literally stating "you are wrong." It's like,
there was another one which is here's your attention that you're seeking, and it's like I'm not. I got that one. It's like, yeah, you must know me quite well, But then the admin came in and says, well, listen, he's just expressing kind of like an opinion, a point for discussion. And you had to explain to this person that actually making a point like that and then counteracting it with the reasons that I thought it was either it appealed to me or it didn't appeal to me was entering into an actual discussion. At the end of it, my opinion didn't really change. The best one, what I did... and this is going to haunt me and somebody's going to actually come round my house and kill me, was when I posted that video of what happens when you open up the small box in Mechs vs. Minions.
I can't believe people took offence to that. I was... some people really do need to get a sense of humour, don't they? I think what they need to do is they need to get their K's catalogue out and go and find the sense of humour replacement.
For those who didn't see it, I can't. I don't think I can post it.
No, you'll spoil the surprise if you...
Yeah, it was just, I said, I finally opened the box in Mechs vs. Minions, and I posted a little video of what was in it, and people were like, "You've ruined it!" I was like... And there was a guy that insisted he got to the point where he took a photograph of an interview with the creator saying, well, we hope people don't spoil the game for it, but just in case. And I had to categorically even put a message and say, I didn't spoil the game, it is a joke. It was just fantastic. With you going back on topic, this is like Michael Parkinson. With you going back on topic and me talking to you, have you found that with you doing the reviews, you open yourself up to people, everybody kind of sending you review copies of games?
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of people contacting you saying, will you review this, will you review that, will you review the next
we
thing?
do. And it's something actually... eased off a little bit because Andy came on board and started writing reviews as well. So about the same time we started the podcast, Andy started writing reviews.
Yeah.
So I thought, all right, that's okay. There's two of us doing now. At least I can handle it a bit better. But we've actually both gone the other way and just had to go, right, we have to stop taking on games because we were, especially at the beginning, the fact that anyone was willing to send us a game to review, it was like, oh wow, this is amazing. And now we're trying to manage it a bit more because the other thing we've got to consider, not only is our time, because it takes a long time to learn the rules to a game, play it enough times that you're confident you know how the game's supposed to work, and then schedule it into a podcast or write a review, take photographs, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. So
there's a definite time investment, and there's a definite kind of, I can't do like 6 reviews in a week without quitting my day job.
No.
We also found that if we do a big review of like a big game, then that's going to get more traffic. So we've always said that we really need to balance the two, because you want the big traffic to come in to make your name bigger, which then should hopefully point people towards these smaller games that we're reviewing as well.
Yeah.
So getting that balance at the moment, we're actually finding quite difficult. I'll be honest there.
No, it's tricky. I mean, we're kind of getting into the same boat because, me and Colin chat about this, and the difficulty is that it's kind of strange. It's like I had like Mark Neidlinger from Orange Nebula to talk about Epoch, and Epoch was one of these stories where he put it on Kickstarter once and he cancelled it within about 2-3 weeks because it just simply wasn't going to make the go. It didn't look like it. He rejigged everything, came back 3 weeks later, and then I spoke to him the first or the second day of the campaign, and he'd put up $25,000 as a target, and then it funded. It went on to do 10 times that. It went on to do something like $285,000. So it was one of these success stories.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of it, I know I joke about this as like named, Molly Sugden's Bridesmaids and everything like that. But I find it a lot easier. It's easier now for me to approach somebody like, say, Dave Carl from Steamforged and say, would you like to come on the show? Because I can say, well, listen, we have had this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And it's also easy for me to go back to John Gilmore and say, hey, John, it's been a year since you've been on. Would you like to come back on? And he says, yes, because it's, it's good fun. And he knows kind of me and I know kind of him. But at the same time, you end up in a situation where I'm potentially putting off the smaller guys which maybe need that little kind of chat, or do you know what I mean? Yeah.
No, exactly what you mean. And I made a decision a while ago that because the other thing is I think my name got put onto a mailing list. So there's lots of companies that have been contacting me. And I think I know where it came from. But I generally started to go like, people would ask me to do a review, and they'd obviously done no bloody research whatsoever.
Yeah.
And you'd say, oh, that's kind of interesting, that game. Yeah, I'll take a review on. You give them the address, and they go, you're based in England. It's like, well, yeah. Did you not spot the proliferous use of the letter U within my spelling? We haven't got enough money to send it to the UK. Well, why did you bloody contact me in the first place? And I did make a decision at some point that if I was running out of time and a UK company and a US Kickstarter, both wanted to review at the same time, it'd be, well, I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
I need to support UK companies. So I would always say to the American ones, look, you've got thousands of bloody reviewers on your doorstep. Yeah. You don't need me. And so I always kind of went for the UK and the European ones as well, because I found got a lot of contacts from companies in Poland and Spain because they wanted an English language review. They could get one in Spanish or get one in Polish, but they wanted that English language review. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of said with that as well, you're closer to home than the Americans are, and again, you obviously haven't got as much chance. So yeah, come on board. Let's see what you've got, kind of thing. But I'm being more selective at the moment. I'm going on like a first. If I don't like the look of a game to begin with at the moment, some of them are just like, no, I'm sorry, I can't. It's.
Have there any games that you've turned down for review that have gone on to be the kind of the next big darling of the board game world?
Nothing really major. I think I've been quite lucky that I've not turned anything major down. I did do one game which I didn't actually write a review for because I did a print and play, and it turned into this big darling of the entire board game industry. And I played this print and play version and went, "This game's rubbish. What on earth is everyone on about?" And it's kind of in hindsight, I wish I had written a review.
Yeah,
but at the time, I just kind of thought, well, no, it's going to seem a bit weird that. Especially as they didn't end up sending me a copy, so I printed it all out myself. And I think I said, in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. But that was about the only one. But that was weird. How the reviewers it was the darling of the reviewers' world. I think the game came out and it's just disappeared. Oh God, what was it called? Oh, it was a British made one again, and it was a bit like Top Trumps.
All right, okay.
Oh God, I can't for the life of me remember what it was called now, and it was advertised as this big thing that you didn't need a table to play it on. You just play it in your hand because you only ever looked at the top card of your deck.
All right, okay.
So
it wasn't Heroes and Tricks.
No, it wasn't that.
All right, okay. Well, that's okay. We can just we can put it to one. We can put it to one side.
And somebody's going to know what it is, and I absolutely hated it, and I couldn't work out why everyone else was gushing over this game.
There are people currently screaming at the podcast in their cars. We're going to get tweeted about this. Yes. And all we're going to do is we're going to get at it, and it's going to be, it's hackers, you bloody idiot. It'll be John.
That'll be my comeuppance, wouldn't it? That'll be like karma come back
this
to
is
kick
the
me in the
karma.
backside.
This is going to be. It's going to be. No, it's called It's Only a Ride. Come on, you talked about it on 15 of your 35 episodes. Come on, Steve, what are you doing? Is there anything you're looking for? I mean, is there anything you're playing just now that you've kind of went, ooh, this is quite nice and tasty?
I've got to admit, I flit through board games quite a bit because of the reviewing and because I often find sometimes I'm spending far too much time playing games I need to review than I am playing games I want to play. So it almost feels like a special occasion at the moment playing a game I want to play, which is it's a bit weird in that respect. I'm playing quite a lot of Dungeons and Dragons at the moment, which is quite nice.
What are you playing as?
I'm the DM. So I would say of my lifetime playing Dungeons and Dragons, about 99% of that time has been spent DMing.
Really?
I've played other role-playing games. I've played as characters, but D&D for some reason I'm always the DM.
I was playing last night. I was playing the Mines of Philandia or whatever.
Okay.
And we stormed the castle.
Yep.
We went into the room, and there was an owl bear. And I rolled a 19 on animal husbandry. And I'm now trotting about. I'm an orc, yeah. I'm trotting about with a wolf and an owl bear called Gladys.
Gladys the owl bear.
Gladys the owl bear. Come here, you little darling. This is what happened because he walked in and went, there's an owl bear there. What happened was there's an owl bear. You definitely think there's an owl bear on the other side of the door. And I'm playing an orc. And I'm just like that. Whoa! An owl bear. I've not seen an owl bear. So I smash open the door to go and see this owl bear. And I'm like, no, look at his little face. And I goes, I'm going to roll. He says, what are you going to do? I says, I'm not going to attack it because I don't attack animals because I'm a friendly orc. So I roll for animal husbandry. I roll a 19 plus advantage. This is what you do. Well, I reach up and scratch his ears. Then I reach up and scratch his other ears. And then I slowly put it on the ground. And then I start rubbing its belly. And then he says, is it male or female? And it's like, well, it's female. I says, well, okay, that's fine. Then and then I'm going to call it Gladys. So then obviously we get into the finale of the castle kind of thing. There's a couple of big tough bad guys. And I just walk in with my owlbear behind me, decimating everything to the point where, a couple of folk will proudly tell us, they'll back up my story, but there was like one guy left. I don't know what he was. He was like he was a bear as well or something like that. I don't know. Some bear or something like that. And I said to him, well, he's left. He says, would you fight? I says, well, I'm not going to fight. I'm going to use intimidation. I rolled a 19 on my intimidation. So I'm strutting up to him. I says, all right, mate. And he's like, oh, what is it? Oh. I says, see, mate. He says, there's two ways this is going to happen. Okay. And the first way is, he says, you got a family? And he went, yeah, I've got 3. He says, you take all the gold from the people here that you've killed. You disappear off and see your family. He says, the other way it's going to happen is I've got an owl bear standing behind me. How do you think this is going to end? It was just a beautiful moment where he could have fought all the way through and it could have been carnage, and it ended up him walking out the castle with this huge owl bear that's taking up 4 spaces at once, going back down to the village. He says, where are you going to go? I said, we're just going to go to the barn and hang out there. So it's things like that
that's what makes D&D, isn't it? It really is.
It is. Because I've been quite stupid all the way through. Because somebody says, we're not going to... He says, well, what do you think to do? Well, why don't you just walk in the front door? So that's what I do. You just don't say, "Oh, just okay, I'll just go and walk in the front." Yeah, but that's it. If you haven't played D&D, I think it's one of these games that you should definitely try.
I gotta admit, if you have not played it, that whole description just makes you sound like a madman.
Oh, it was so much.
That's
fun.
the thing, isn't it? It's like the game I'm playing at the moment. One of the players decided to buy a bottle of perfume. And it's like, well, why are you going to buy a bottle of perfume? He's going, well, I've got like 20 gold pieces burning a hole in the pocket, and I've just looked for the item list. There's a bottle of perfume. Then he spent basically the entire dungeon trying to convince the other players it was worth him taking this perfume along.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good fun. But I mean, is it okay on the other side of it? Going forward, is there anything that you, if you get, say you get the phone call from the company and they're saying, I'm going to get you an advanced review copy of this game, is there a game that you're really looking forward to getting the Tudor clause in? There's
a few actually at the moment. I mean, you've asked me this at the right time, because I think if you'd asked me this about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'd have been struggling, but Gen Con just happened, so all these exciting new games get announced.
Exactly.
I've got to admit, I'm rather interested by the Legends of the Five Rings board game that FFG have just announced.
Yeah.
That's really got my interest, because although it looks at first glance like it's a complete carbon copy of Rising Sun, which is quite terrifying how similar it looks. If you compare the two images, the stock images of the two like prototype boards, it looks like exactly the same game, just one's got miniatures and one hasn't. But they've kind of suggested it's based on Game of Thrones, which is one of my favourite board games, and can play less players, so I don't need to find 5 other people, and takes less time. So if it is just a case of Game of Thrones or a Japanese reskin that can play 3 players in 2 hours,
yeah,
I'll be all over that.
Because times is always an important factor.
Yeah. And trying to get 5 other people together to play a full game of Game of Thrones can be a bit of a pain.
It's just that it's that old joke. It is going back to the Dungeons and Dragons thing, where it's like, you have my sword, you have my axe, you have my shield. I can't do Thursdays. Sorry.
Yes.
Which I'm pretty sure you've referenced on your own podcast at some point in very quite recently. That's probably how I stole it. You know what I mean? I'm going to get caught for everything.
That's alright.
Anything else you're looking forward to as well?
Oh, there's a few things. I've backed to the 2nd edition of Gloomhaven, so I'm quite interested in that one. My worry is with that, though, I moved house recently and I haven't got a really regular gaming group, so that might sit on the shelf for a few months unplayed until I can convince some people to play it with me.
Yeah, Colin's getting that one. I'm not convinced I'm going to sit down for 6 weeks and play a campaign, to be perfectly
That's the
honest.
thing, the campaign really interests me. I always say I'm fascinated by campaign games and then never really finish them off.
No. Same with Descent. You know, I was speaking to when Andy was on. It was like, my pile of shame consists of Imperial Assault, which has never been played, because I played Descent, and then I thought, do I play? And it's sitting there. I might even give it away.
Weirdly, I own Imperial Assault. I've played the entire campaign of Imperial Assault, but it was with someone else's copy. So technically, I've played the entirety of Imperial Assault.
Oh my goodness!
But my copy is completely untouched because about 4 people I know bought it at the same time.
That's ridiculous. I think I got it. Do you know what? It's the old thing. It was like, I think it was my. Do you know what it was? This is how bad it is. It was my 40th, and my mum gave me some money for my birthday.
40th and got money. Okay.
Yeah, my mum says, "Here you go, son. There you go, son. What are you going to get?" "I'm going to buy a Star Wars game, Mummy. I'm going to buy a Star Wars game, Mummy, and I'm not going to play it. Not for a long time." So, but there's, do you know what the scary thing is that there seems to be a new exciting Kickstarter kind of coming out every week. So I'm looking at James Hudson. Is doing his next thing, which is Guardian's Call. Now, Grim Forest looked amazing. and I'm interested to see what he does next with his next project, which is going to be coming out at the beginning of October. Charterstone.
I think October's going to be... Yeah, Charterstone, yes. It's another campaign-style game.
I know.
But yeah, I am very intrigued by Charterstone because Andy has turned around my view of Stone Man games.
Really?
I wasn't a big fan of them at first because I'm not a fan of Euphoria.
I'd like to play it. I'd really, really like to play it.
I think I need to play it again because my taste in games has changed. I would say that the kind of big, heavy Euro I wasn't interested in 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And my eyes are starting to open to that, and I'm actually starting to get a little less interested in the dice rolling Ameritrash. But not too much.
Yeah,
just a smidge.
Well, saying that, I've currently got a copy of the microphone. What game is the mic on? The mic's currently on a copy of the others.
Ooh.
And a copy of Cry Havoc.
Ooh.
Yup. Because you might as well use some area control and a nice bit of Ameritrash kind of thrown in. I was playing Viticulture just at the weekend there because just like a responsible parent, I believe that I was playing it with my 2 kids, and I believe that we played it for about 2.5 hours, and I kind of was doing that whole responsible parent introducing my kids to alcohol type thing by letting them play a game about making wine as opposed to drinking it, which I thought was a clever thing to do.
Oh, that's very clever, yeah.
It was, until they both tanned a bottle of White Lightning and started to fight the neighbours down the road. But that's another. that's a kind of another story. But no, it's kind of, I don't know. It's like one of these things. Is I've got a wheat intolerance, but if Jamie Stegmaier made a board game where you had to eat biscuits halfway through, I would be thinking potentially how many I could get away with before I was seriously ill, kind of thing. Because I've kind of. As I say, viticulture's my jam. Scythe, I'm still not 100% convinced. It's very
I've only
good.
actually played it properly once. I need to play it a few more times. It's like I like all the moving parts.
Yes.
I'm just not entirely sure they all make a big, nice machine at the end of it.
It's like Rogue One. I like what they've done with all the separate bits to make it all shiny and new, and all the separate little bits kind of work really, really well. But when you kind of put it together, I kind of felt a little bit underwhelmed at the very, very end.
Okay.
With a scoring mechanism. That was the only thing. I thought the gameplay all the way through was fantastic, and I really liked it. And then I got to the end, and I went, "Oh, it's finished." And then I was like, "Oh, but I didn't naturally feel I had a chance to finish what I was doing." It was like, that's it, pencils down, exams over, let's top up the stores and see what you could have won, kind of thing. So that was kind of my issue with Scythe. Not to say that I'm obviously completely coveting the expansions and the expandable board and the coins and everything else. They're on my Amazon wish list. I'll put it in the show notes, kind of thing. But anything else you're kind of looking forward to yourself?
I'm just trying to think what else is coming out. I mean, I'm intrigued by... I've always been a massive Fantasy Flight Games fan, and they've just announced like 20 odd games.
Legion.
Fascinated by it. Yeah. Star Wars Legion. Yeah, I'm back and forth on that one. Oh, I really am.
I'm not sure
because yeah. Plus side, Star Wars miniatures game. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Negative side, I already own about 4 miniatures games I don't play now. Am I going to play Star Wars Legion?
Exactly. It's like owning an extra bum. If it was slightly perter, but I'm not sure I'm going to wear it.
Yeah.
Because it means I need to get bigger trousers. That's a rubbish analogy. Oh dear. Question time. We have questions. I forgot about them, so we better kind of ask questions. Questions have come flooding in. I've got... Here we go. Let me see. Questions. Do 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 do. Put the film music, will you, please, Steve? Thanks.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
So,
I'm off key there. That's horrible.
there we go. I'm out of key. I should have tuned. Nee 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 nee. Nah, nee 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 nee. Nee 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 nee. Rory J Summers asks. He asks, which game did you use to break in your new fancy Geek and Son table?
Ooh, yes, my new fancy Geek and Son table, which has been in my house for about a week now. The game I broke in on it was actually Tokaido.
Oh.
Which is one of my wife's favourite games. My wife bizarrely loves board games but hates anything two-player. She needs to have more opponents to kind of balance it out, because if I play a game against her, it's like as if as soon as I start winning, she feels like it's like takes insult at it, like as if I'm picking on her. Well, of course I'm picking on you. You're the only other player here. So at least Tokaido is quite leisurely.
Sounds like an excellent kind of person to be married to. She doesn't like the two-player game. No. Rory asks another question. When Pixar makes a board game story, which board game will you audition to provide the voice for?
Oh my god.
That's one of those tricky ones, isn't it?
That's a really tricky one. Is there a Welsh board game that I could do that for?
I have no idea. Isle of Skye? That's a joke, that's not...
There'll be a lot of people who won't get that one.
I know. No, I have no idea, because they don't know where the Isle of Skye is. They'll have no idea. Okay, yeah, which board game would you audition to be the voice for? Mansions of Madness?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm naturally inclined to be some kind of Arkham Horror-ish game, because I love the Lovecraft.
Not Settlers of Catan, then?
No.
You can't spend the entire film going, this is overrated gibberish.
Yeah, definitely not that one.
Okay. So, there we go. Something to do with Arkham Asylum. Why don't you like Catan? I mean, everybody likes Catan. How can you call yourself, say, you're part of the board game media?
I just find it boring.
Well, there you go. That's
well, I mean, there's a few things I don't like about it. I don't like the scoring mechanism. Because you've got like half the points are hidden and half them aren't. So there's this thing where because you can buy the development cards, so you don't know. All of a sudden, somebody just goes, "I've won." It's like, oh right, okay.
That's it.
I had no idea you had half the points you had in your hand. I think the trading aspect of it, which is kind of core to the game, it has never worked in any single time I've played it, and I just find it a little bit boring. It's not something intrinsically wrong with the mechanics. It's kind of its age, and I understand kind of where it's come from and largely what it's done for the board game industry in total.
Yeah,
but
it's like Monopoly.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it never did anything for me, and everyone kind of pokes me for the rant because my main complaint against Catan is not so much the game itself, is because it brought like board games and more importantly German style board games to America. A lot of people like hold it in this high regard that it's the game that brought these, introduced these games to the world. And interesting, you were saying like when you post a review and somebody tells you you're wrong.
Yeah.
When you wrote down, it's just I remember somebody telling me the reason I like board games is because of Catan on an internet forum on Facebook or something like that, and I kind of went. Hero Quest, Space Crusade, Space Hulk, Blood Bowl, Battlefleet.
Not Catan.
Not Catan.
Not Catan. John Cage writes, when I said we're going to be joined by the best looking member of Polyhedron Collider, John said, "Oh, I'm coming back on the show." No, you're not. Which was a shame. He did ask when we are getting together for a massive game of Talisman.
Are you brave enough?
I don't know.
Can you handle it?
I might bring along Labyrinth instead. I've heard that's good. One last question. I don't know if we nicked us off you as well, so this could be embarrassing. It's a zombie apocalypse. Okay?
Yeah.
You are skirting about for survival. You're running up and down the streets while the mass of the undead are clawing at the very essence of your life. You run into a side alley where you break into a building that turns out to be a massive board game emporium. Inside the building, you have got every single board game ever made with any single expansions that you have. In the middle of the floor, there is a trolley that is highly manoeuvrable. Standing in the corner is John Cage and Andy Lewis.
Are they zombified or are they still
no,
human?
they are fine. They are bickering. John is wanting
no
to
doubt they are bickering. Yeah,
yeah, just bickering for the sake of it.
Yes.
You can take any 3 board games with you.
They have to be board games.
Any board games, tabletop games, anything to do with a
Okay.
hobby whatsoever. Three items with you. You can have any of the expansions. It
You're
doesn't.
right,
It doesn't matter the number of people that you're going to meet, because you're always going to find people to play with. And the answer to the question is, would you like to play a board game, is always going to be yes. Unfortunately, the trolley has only enough handles for 2 people. So, what games you gonna take, Steve? And who you gonna leave?
leave behind? Oh no! I think someone did ask this of us on our podcast, and I'm probably going to say 3 completely different games now, aren't I? So I'm going to be horribly inconsistent.
Yes. Your first game, Mr. Tudor.
So if I can take any game, not
Any
necessarily
game.
board game,
Any expansion.
yeah.
Could be tabletop, could be miniatures, could be a LARPing set. Anything you want.
I would probably take Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay. What edition?
So, 5th.
Okay.
I really love 5th edition, and I've still got my old 2nd edition AD&D rule books, and I had a quick flick through them and kind of went, oh my god, I'm not going back to this. Because you have that kind of rose-tinted view in your mind what it was like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. There's about 300 more tables that you'd forgotten about.
Awesome.
So yeah, I would probably take D&D, because I think even with just the 3 core rule books, you could have hours and hours and hours and hours of gameplay with that, because really the only limits your imagination at that point.
Okay. Next game.
Next game.
There's some slight banging outside. The zombies have been alerted to your presence at the front door.
So, I will probably take Arkham Horror with all the expansions.
Okay.
Arkham Horror still remains one of my favourite games, even though I know it's fiddly and clunky as hell.
Okay.
I absolutely love it. I will allow people to diss it, but I know that I love it. What's the 3rd one?
And now the 3rd one.
That's a difficult one.
There's a shattering of the glass in one of the panes in the corner of the door.
Do you know what?
Hear a distinct moaning sound.
I'd be even though I've never played it, I'd be tempted to take Twilight Imperium.
Which edition? Because we're assuming that
Ooh.
the zombie apocalypse takes place in the near future, so
Well, let's say it's the very near future, and so I can't get hold of the 4th edition.
3rd
'Cause that
edition
means
is then.
Yeah, so yeah, 4th edition. Only because I would finally have enough chance to play it. You'd have enough time on your hands to actually play the damn thing and learn the rules.
So again, you've got the trolley. The trolley can only be pushed by 2 people at speed.
Do you know what? I'm far too nice a person. I'm probably the kind of person that go, no, you guys go, I'll stay here and hold them back. I am.
Oh my goodness.
I probably would. I couldn't do that. I couldn't actually do that. I mean,
Really?
yeah.
You wouldn't consider just putting John Cage on the trolley, having him carry the games, and you and Andy wheel yourself down the street then?
Well, as we said, if we John's quite short anyway, so yeah, you're right. We could probably put in the little child seat in the trolley, it'd be fine.
You'd fit in the Twilight Imperium box.
Yeah.
Well, I would fit in the Twilight Imperium box, let's face it.
I think
everybody would. In fact,
we could all just hide in the Twilight Imperium box.
Stick some wheels.
The whole thing to blow over.
Stick some wheels on the Twilight Imperium box, basically, and then you'd be home free. That's fine. We shall do that, and you shall take those games, and that shall be fantastic. This has been a lot of fun. This has been long. Oh my goodness, this has been exceptionally
Sorry, you're into
good fun.
The ramshackle ramblings territory of Polyhedron Collider here.
It's not a problem at all. It's been a lot of fun. If people have listened tonight, and they'll probably know where you guys exist already, but for those few people who aren't aware of where you exist on the interweb nets, where can we find you, Mr. Steven Tudor of Polyhedron Collider?
Well, the first place to visit is polyhedroncollider.com.
Okay.
And from there you will find links to all other corners of the internet. So we're on podcasts on iTunes. We also post them on all the other kind of podcast feeds that I can think of. So we're on Stitcher and things like that. All the podcasts also get put onto YouTube, so you can get them on there. We're on Facebook, Polyhedron Collider. I'm on Twitter at PolyhedronC, and I consider myself reasonably active on Twitter, so anyone who says anything, I generally tend to reply. There's a Google Plus account somewhere, which I think I've stopped posting to.
Did you ever start posting to?
I did, because I was convinced it would help search engine rankings, because it's Google. I'm not quite sure if that worked.
No.
There's probably, I think there's a Tumblr, there's an Instagram. There's a Flipboard. I actually quite like the Flipboard. I think more people should use Flipboard, but I don't think they do, actually.
I'll need to check out. I'm not even sure what that is. And if you want to keep an eye on what we're doing, then just do what he does. We do the same as what they do, which is we're on Stitcher and Acast and Spreaker and YouTube and Mixcloud on occasion when I can be bothered to actually upload an episode to that, but you have to upload them separately because it doesn't accept an RSS feed for some reason. Mm-hmm. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Twitter, you can find us on YouTube if you search for We're Not Wizards Tabletop. Everywhere else, if you just search for We're Not Wizards, you will find us, and we also live abouts on the Apple Podcast. Now, if you like what you have listened to tonight, then please drop a subscription, because that really, really helps the show. Big thanks to Blake Leafday and Wookie No Pants for leaving us some rather wonderful iTunes reviews. Very, very much appreciated, and to everybody else who's done that. What they have done, and what you should consider doing, is they have decided not to give us a 10 because it makes us big-headed, but they have also decided not to give us a 1 because it would make us cry. Both those lovely people have decided to give us a 5 because that's in the middle. It's a bit average, and we are a bit average. And if you've got time, jump on to Polyhedron Collider on Apple Podcasts, give them a listen, give them a subscription, and if you like what you've heard from them, give them a 5 as well. Give them a 1. Give them a 5 as well. 1. Definitely a 5. Give them a 6. Because they would love that. Because they're definitely not average. But yes,
I would actually say, for everyone out there, if you like what you hear, like what you see with anyone, and it's not just us, anyone who writes reviews or podcasts, give them a like, give them a subscribe, but most importantly, say you like them.
Yes.
Because there's nothing, share the stuff, or just go on Twitter and just say, thank you for your stuff, or I like your stuff, because you get these hits and you get these numbers, and they're just mindless numbers, but somebody going, we went to the UK Games Expo, people coming up to us and going, oh, I like the podcast, or I like the written reviews. It's so much better. You're doing something more rewarding at that point than just getting a number of how many page views you've got.
Yeah. I'm sure one day that somebody will tell us they like us as well. One day. But, listen, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat. You know, this is an excellent way to end up the kind of the holy trinity of Top Gear podcast, board game related nonsense that is Polyhedron Collider. There is only 2 more things to do, and the first thing, as always, is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Mr. Tudor?
No, we're not wizards.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from the wonderful, the fantastic, the multi-talented media content producer that is Mr. Steven Tudor. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and yeah, you know, check out all the content creators out there. We take time to make stuff for you to listen, for you to read, and for you to watch. And remember the little guys out there. But until the next time, thanks for all your support. Big hugs. Show number 100 is coming up very, very soon. And I still have no idea what we're going to be doing on it. But until the next time, goodbye. Say bye, Steve.
Bye.
Bye.